This presentation will cover the domain of data analyses. We are living in a data-driven society. In order to be successful in the future, our students need to be critical consumers of information and data. The foundations for this skill begin in early childhood. This presentation will discuss how children in grades pre-K through 3 learn to choose the right tool to analyze and display data. We will also review different forms of graphs used in early childhood and how to assess student progress in the domain of data analyses. There are many skills children demonstrate as they have experience in using graphs. Through graphing, children get practice in counting as well as in organizing information. If they participate in creating the graphs, they present information in a way that is easily understood. Additionally, students learn to see similarities and differences in results. Children who have experiences in graphing are applying their abilities to classify. As students learn to read graphs, they begin to interpret information and make judgments. Then they have the opportunity to communicate the results and describe their thinking. When done in developmentally appropriate ways, graphing is a powerful tool for helping children to analyze data. As powerful as graphs are, there can be challenges to using graphs with young children. When we present mathematical information at an early age, it is important that the information we use with children is very accurate. However, when we allow children to create their own graphs, the information presented can be distorted if care is not taken up front. Examples of what this will look like will be shown in the following slides. Additionally, younger children are still developing the concept of one-to-one correspondence, so they may struggle in placing items on the graph if the graph is not properly structured. It is hard for children to understand that the vertical and horizontal axes on the graphs are stable points. A final challenge is that children are still developing the concept of number conservation through the age of 7. Remember, Piaget taught us that children are not able to understand that a group that looks longer or bigger might have less than a physically smaller looking group that has more members. As we begin to ask children about graphing, the teacher can model kinds of questions children can answer using the graph. As children gain more experience in graphing, they are able to create questions for others about the graph. In early childhood, we really focus on two types of questions: comparing questions and counting questions. Some examples of comparing questions are: which has more, fewer? Which group is higher or lower? Are there any groups that are the same? Examples of counting questions used with graphs might be: how many blank are there? Are there more blank than there are blank? How many are there if we put blank and blank together? A discussion of the data that is presented in the graph is an important component of an effective lesson using data analysis in early childhood. When implementing graphs, there are many different ways to incorporate these experiences in the early childhood curriculum, as well as throughout a variety of subjects in kindergarten through grade 3. Teachers can have students use real objects to graph with as they are younger by placing mats on a floor. Another activity that is great for graphing real objects is called a scoop and graph. In this activity, the teacher will have a paper bag or a bucket that is filled with items. Then the students take a scoop of the items, sort the items, and graph them. Some teachers use picture graphs in the form of a bar graph. We also introduced the concepts of circle graphs and line graphs in early childhood, although these graphs are more challenging and are typically used with older children who have a good concept of number. The following slides will demonstrate a variety of graphs that are used in early childhood settings. In this example, the teacher uses a variety of graphs in one display. The children's choices are represented by a picture of their face. The sizes of the faces are pretty similar, yet not exact, so the concept of number conservation becomes critically important. Otherwise, the information is misrepresented. This can be noticed especially in the graph of favorite foods. Hot dogs and hamburgers have the same number of votes. However, upon first glance, it looks like hamburger has considerably more votes than hot dogs. The same holds true for the circle graph. The two circles with the largest number of students are only separated by one student, yet one of the areas is significantly larger than the other area. The teacher did a fantastic job of making the graphs developmentally appropriate, but we also need to consider how to do so and present accurate information. It can be a challenging task. In this picture, the child is graphing his vehicles by where they are utilized. You can see that Matt has lines that are drawn to provide structure so he is able to place the items and analyze the information according to number. The lines help the irregular size of the vehicles become less important. The lines on the graph also provide structure to help the child develop one-to-one correspondence by putting only one vehicle in each square. This student is graphing teddy bears with counters. The student is placing one counter in each square. The next step of this type of activity, or the next lesson, would be to have the student color a box for each teddy bear. This helps move her from the concrete to the representational. This should only be done if she's able to complete this activity in the concrete independently. In this photo, the teacher is letting the students vote. However, because there is no X or Y axis and it appears to be a chart, the students would need to place this information into a graph to help them more easily interpret and analyze the data. This is a nice way for students to cast a vote, but it represents the raw data, not an easily readable graph. Here is another way for students to voice their selection. If the pictures were lined up differently, such as by a set number in each column, the data might be a little more easy to interpret. A challenge of having students participate in a voting or selection type activity for the purpose of graphing is that children have a real developmental need to fit in and to belong to the group. We often have students who change their mind based on the selection of the person next to them. When we force children to make a selection, they may want to be part of the winning group. This can result in votes being changed, data misrepresented, and feelings of children being hurt. As teachers, there are things we can do to combat this problem at the forefront of the lesson. First of all, in our classrooms, we should always try to celebrate each child's uniqueness and understand their need to feel as part of a group. We also need to examine the implications of seemingly harmless sorting and classifying activities. For instance, it may seem harmless to sort by the type of shoe a child is wearing. However, it becomes harmful when only children from a higher socioeconomic background are wearing sneakers and everyone else is wearing a sandal or a slip-on shoe. One way to complete a sorting activity with children that lessens hurt feelings is to have the children place their choices in a bag. Then the vote is secret and anonymous. Additionally, we can have children select a choice from a bag. Therefore, the choices are random and beyond the control of the child. However the teachers choose to manage these activities, it is important to be mindful of the implication these activities can have on students' emotions and sense of belonging. There are several ways to assess data analysis skills in early childhood. The best way is to observe children engaging in a variety of activities, both data analysis activities as well as general classroom activities. We can observe children sorting and explaining the reasons for their sorting, as well as watching children comment on a common phenomenon that occurs in the classroom, such as them saying, "Look, all three of us have polka dots on our shirts." We can watch how children collect, organize, and sort data, as well as how they are able to label any data they collect. Finally, we can observe children interacting with graphs and ask questions to see if they are able to gain meaning from those graphs. As this presentation has shown, children can develop data analysis skills in many ways, but especially through experiences in graphing. Teachers can provide these experiences in ways that provide the structure and support necessary at each grade level. Through hands-on, developmentally appropriate activities, students will develop a variety of skills that help them with data analysis. Teachers can assess these skills by observing the students engaging in many activities, especially those that allow students to explain how they arrived at an answer.